What is good, everybody? It is Spill here, and welcome back to another NBA 2K Lab video. In this one, we're going to be going over how to make the J.R. Smith SWISH replica build. But not only that, we're going to show you guys how to optimize your own replica builds to make them the best they can be. Now, we figured everything out so you don't have to, so be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and without further ado, let's get right into it. Before we start, make sure to watch the entire video through because we're going to give you some gems that you'll need to know when making your own replica builds, and we're also going to treat this like our other build videos and go through every attribute and why we chose it. So if you don't know, 2K dropped one of the coolest Easter eggs ever in an NBA 2K video game, and basically they made it where if you make your build the same exact position, height, weight, wingspan, handedness, number with similar attribute caps as certain players, you'll get a special build name relating to that player. For example, Dennis Rodman's replica build is called the Worm, Penny Hardaway is Lil Penny, and there's a whole bunch of others. And when these builds were first found, people didn't really understand how it worked to get the special names, but we figured it all out. Now, the original batch of builds weren't really optimized to hit the correct attribute thresholds for certain animations and badge unlocks, which made most of them look like terrible builds and deterred a lot of people from actually making one. But we found a way to customize these builds to make them much more viable. Now, when we first did our replica build tier list, there was only around 35 replica builds discovered at the time, but 2K seems to be releasing more and more with each season release, and right now there's about 60 different replica builds, and you can find the full list on our website at nba2klab.com. We'll leave a link in the description that will take you directly to the replica build page. But as you can see by the title, we'll be looking at J.R. Smith's SWISH build, and this is one that we've been running with a lot in the past few weeks. Now, to make any replica build, you need to find the correct player from the correct roster. For some players, you can use the same player from multiple different teams, but you just have to find the right team. Now, for the SWISH build, we looked up JR's attributes from the historical rosters, and he can actually have a build made from the 07-08 Nuggets, the 15-16 Cavs, or the 2011-2012 Knicks. The version we chose was the Cavs one. Now, the easiest way to get attributes from these players is to use the website 2kratings.com, but you can also find them in the rosters within 2K as well. Now, this is a very important part. So when making and customizing the build, in order to keep the replica build name, the attributes must all be within 8 points of the original version you chose, and that 8-point threshold can be above or below the original attribute level. For example, if the player you're copying has an original dunk rating of 88, you can go as low as 80 or go as high as 96. So there's definitely a good amount of leeway with these replica builds. Most of the replicas have some high attributes and stats that don't really matter. Like, for instance, you might see a 6'4 build with 90 plus close shot or 70 plus post control. But the reason we made this JR SWISH build is because his attributes are lower in the categories that we don't really care about. Now, on the screen, we have the original JR Smith build from the 15-16 Cavs, and you can see it's an okay build with good dunking and a great 3-point shot, but looking at the playmaking, you can see it lacks the proper thresholds to be a great guard build. Now, 80 ball handle is fine, but to get the better animations, you'll want at least 85, and if you want a gold clamp breaker, you want at least an 87, which can also be very beneficial. Now, on the screen next, I'll show you the minimums and maximums of each attribute for the SWISH build to get a better perspective on what we can do with this build. There's a couple of different routes you can go, and he can get up to 93 driving dunks, so you have the ability to get gold posterizer and elite contacts and make this build into an insane slasher, or you can go with a really high 3-ball and make more of a pure sharp version. But either way, like in real life, there are negatives to a build, and when it comes to J.R. Smith, his negative would be his defense. But that's not really much of a big deal in this case because it will allow us to make his offensive game even stronger. So now that we've given you guys the sauce on how to customize your own replica builds, let's get into the actual build here. Now, the beginning is one of the most important parts of the replica builds, and like I mentioned earlier, you'll need to have the same position, height, weight, wingspan, handedness, and jersey number in order to get the build names. So to start, you can name it whatever you'd like, but you have to make sure you have everything else exactly the same. The position is obviously a shooting guard, handedness we're going with right, and the jersey number is 5, and then we're going on to the actual physicals, and we're going 6'6" on the height, 220 pounds, and 6'10" on the wingspan. The body type is completely preference, but I always choose compact. Now, for our finishing, we're going with a 67 close shot, which is going to give us bronze fast twitch, and that's going to be a luxury badge if you ever wanted to switch things up. We're going to put our driving layup to an 82, which will give us access to the Ja Morant and Devin Booker layup packages, but more importantly, we get another finishing badge point at that threshold. Next, we have an 86 dunk, which is going to give us pro context and access to gold limitless takeoff, which will definitely be beneficial for this build. There's some leeway here if you wanted to raise or lower the dunk rating, and we'll show you another variation of this build with 93 dunk for gold posterizer if you wanted to go for that instead. But for this build, we're keeping it at 86, which would be more than enough, and it also allows for a more well-rounded build. For the standing dunk and post control, we went to the minimum threshold we could, so these are going to go to 32 standing dunk and 37 post control. These are the absolute minimums to still keep the SWISH build name intact. In total, this is going to give us 16 finishing badges, which will be fine, but since we went for gold limitless takeoff, that's a tier 3 badge, and it's going to cost us 7 badge points, so you're going to want to at least put one of your extra badge points into finishing to be able to equip this badge. Moving on to the shooting, we went with an 81 mid-range for Hall of Fame midi magician, but if you don't shoot mid-range shots, you can lower this to a minimum of 72, but you'll most likely want the badge points. At a 79 and an 82 mid-range, you'll also see badge point unlocks, so you may be able to save some points there or gain an extra badge if you prefer. I suggest you see what you like for your shooting badge loadout, and then you can adjust this accordingly. Now for our 3-point rating, we went to a 92 to unlock gold limitless range, and with this rating and this badge, you should be able to shoot from deep pretty consistently. Our tests show that silver limitless range also works really well, but with gold, you'll be a bona fide shooter from beyond the hash, and it's well worth the investment for this particular build. The free throw rating is brought to a 67 with a 92 3-point rating by default, and we had some attributes left over, so we just threw the rest in here. And so in total, this gives us 25 shooting badges, which is a solid amount and should be enough to give you all the necessary badges to be a knockdown shooter. Next, we have playmaking, and for pass accuracy, the original build has a 78 pass ac, which isn't bad, but we bumped it up to an 82, which will give us an extra playmaking badge point, which will be well worth the investment. We went to an 85 ball handle, which is going to give us gold quick first step, which is obviously very important, and also we're going to get the better dribbling animations. If you're customizing this build to be more of a slasher, keep in mind that you can get gold clamp breaker with an 87 ball handle and still keep the build name, so that's just something worth mentioning. For speed with ball, we went to an 80, which is a solid threshold and gives us a badge point along with some extra dribble animations. A lot of people use the Michael Jordan dribble style, which only requires a 75 speed with ball, and you also get a badge point at a 76 rating as well. So if you wanted to move some attributes around, that could be an option for you. Just make sure you have enough playmaking badges for the things you want for your playstyle. Now we get to the defense, and I can't lie to you, defense is not the strong suit of this build, but if you're playing 5v5, you'll be fine, but this build will be pretty weak in a 3 setting. Since a lot of these defensive attributes won't be effective on a guard, we're going to opt for the minimum in a lot of these categories, so we're going with a 37 interior defense, and we actually bumped up our perimeter to a 76 to get silver pick dodger, and if you want, you can get this to 80 for an extra badge point, but it probably won't make much of a difference on the court. If you wanted actual defense on this build, you can opt to make the Denver version of the SWISH build, which will allow you to get 85 perimeter D for silver clamps, so just keep that in mind. Next, we went to our minimums of 55 steal, 34 block, 27 offensive, and 37 defensive rebounding. If you think about it, an extra 8 attributes in any of those categories really isn't going to get you much, so in order to really maximize our offense, we set these to the minimums. The physicals on this build are actually pretty good with an 80 speed. We have solid acceleration at an 84, which is going to be nice with that gold quick first step. And then next we went to a minimum of 44 strength, and since J.R. Smith was obviously known as a dunker, he has a really high vertical, and even at the low end of the 8-point threshold, he still has an 80 vertical. And then lastly, we have a 90 stamina, which will be more than enough. Now that is the final SWISH build. You'll be able to get 4 different types of takeovers with slashing, shooting, shot creating, and playmaking, and I typically like to use limitless range and a playmaking take to get a slight boost to my playmaking, but you can obviously choose whatever fits your playstyle the best. But as you can see, we got the Cavs version of the SWISH build, and I really like how they added this little animation at the end, and these replica builds definitely make for a nice little addition to the game. Now I'll go over the badge loadout quickly and show you what we've been using, and for finishing, we have Acrobat Silver, Hall of Fame Giant Slayer, and Silver Fearless Finisher, which will be just enough for our tier 3 badges, and then we're equipping Gold Limitless Takeoff, and once that's scored, we're going to go with Silver Slithery. Now, if you want a posterizer instead, that's completely up to you, but you're going to have to pick and choose what fits your playstyle the best. The shooting badges are definitely playstyle dependent, but the ones you want to make sure you have on this build would be Catch and Shoot on Silver at least, and when we tested it, Silver seemed to provide a solid boost and looked very similar to the gold level, so if you wanted to save a badge point here, you could. Green Machine is also another badge you'll want equipped, and if you can get it to the Hall of Fame level, you should see a significant increase in make percentage as evidenced by our chart here. You can see there's a 100% chance to make your shot when timed properly after your second make. Having those 2 badges alone will unlock your tier 3 badges, and from there you'll want Gold Agent 3 and Gold Limitless Range. Of course, you'll want to core either of these badges eventually, which will give you 8 badge points left over to do whatever you want. If you're a shot creator, you probably want Space Creator, and Volume Shooter is also a good badge to consider. If you're shooting middies, midi magician might be an option for you as well. Now for our playmaking badges, we're going to start in tier 2 and we're going with bronze, bailout, and everything else in here is gold. Hyperdrive will speed up your player when attacking down the court. Quick first step is obviously a must-have, and unpluckable is needed to help so you don't get ripped every play. Now we have silver clamp breaker, which is going to help out a lot with our rim runs, and then we have 4 badge points left over, and you can do whatever you want with these. If you're more of a dribbler, you might want to consider handles for days on silver, and to get that you can maybe lower unpluckable and hyperdrive to silver, but that's completely up to you. Adding 2 of your extra badge points here will get you everything mentioned without sacrificing a lower badge level on your tier 2s, but at the very least you want to make sure you have bailout on bronze and quick first step as high as it can go. Lastly, for defense, there isn't much here, but we did opt for the 76 perimeter defense to get silver pick dodger. Badges like workhorse, off-ball pest, and even box out beast are all badges that you could consider with your leftover points. Now for this last part of the video, I wanted to show you guys the 93 dunk version of this build, and if you don't really care about layup and don't mind sacrificing some defense and speed with ball, you can make this build with gold posterizer and elite contacts. You honestly don't miss out on much, and with this build you're also getting gold clamp breaker, which pairs perfectly with that 93 dunk. After playing with this build for the past few weeks, we probably would have opted for this 93 dunk version, but don't forget though that you'll need to add at least 3 of your extra badge points into finishing in order to unlock and equip that gold posterizer. Now like I said in the beginning, if you want to check out all of the replica builds, we have them available on our website at nba2klab.com, and the link for the replica build page will be in the description down below. Now we're getting around to optimizing every replica build on that page to have the best animations and badges so that if you do make it, you get the best possible version. Now I hope you guys enjoyed this video, hope it helped you out, and if it did, don't forget to drop a like, and if you made it this far in the video, comment down below which replica build you guys would like to see next, and if this video does well, we'll do another one just like it. Thank you guys for watching. It's been Spill, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Later.